we've seen the Damar Hamlin stuff. We've all seen it. People thought that he should have won comeback player of the year because he literally just came back to the field. Didn't really start a snap, didn't really do much. I wasn't a big fan of him being comeback player of the year because I feel like you kind of tarnish the significance that it has. I think comeback player of the year should have gone and did go to Joe Flacco, which was a good move. The man was literally on his couch with his kids watching football before he came back and did what he did. So that was a good move on the NFL. Although I didn't agree with MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, I think those were kind of bad choices because I thought there were better decisions. But hey, what's past is past. Congratulations to people that got the awards. And we know that Damar Hamlin suffered a cardiac arrest on the field, right? With the Cincinnati against the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow ended up playing 16 games that year. I think they did the math, and Joe Burrow has only played 2 full seasons since he's been drafted. 2 full seasons
Yes.
since he's been drafted, which is ridiculous to me. So we see he has a cardiac arrest, and then we see this happens to somebody similar named B.J. Thompson. Go ahead and tell me about B.J. Thompson, Nate.
B.J. Thompson, if I'm not mistaken, he was drafted last year in the fifth round by the
Fifth round.
Kansas City Chiefs, and it came to that he had a seizure, and which seizure then became cardiac arrest. Now we're not used to seeing things like this happening in the NFL, because one thing that happens before the seasons you have your before season physical, then you have your exit physical and whatnot. Now they put you through a lot of tests and so forth, um, but EKG, stress tests, and whatnot, so they can go ahead and see if anything, anything that's again not normal,
Abnormal.
abnormal, and so forth. So they pick these things up, but we're talking about players having cardiac, and these are young players, cardiac arrest and
With no
whatnot.
history of heart
No history,
problems.
no history, no history. So one of the things you got to look at is that okay, young players, no history, and you're doing your preseason physicals, your pre-training camp physicals, you're doing your exit physicals and whatnot. How is this possible that we're seeing cardiac arrest in such young men that are healthy and at their healthiest that they've been in their whole life? So now we got to look at the fact that what the question is arises that what are these guys putting in their bodies? There a lot of the stuff that they're putting in their bodies that literally are speeding up the heart rate, and again doing so much. It takes a lot to be a part and to make an NFL roster, and there's a lot of pressure. You want to make sure you're out there doing your best because you can't afford to have an off day or off practice, anything, because the man that's behind you, he's chopping at the bits for the opportunity. But now I think the NFL is going to have to look at the supplements and all the things that these young men are putting in their bodies, because there's no way that these young men who have been competitors and competed at a high level collegiately and in the NFL, that these guys should be going into cardiac arrest and whatnot. If you don't have a history of seizures or anything of that sort, heart related issues, why is it that you're having them now? And this is a
Well,
serious matter.
if you let me, I'm gonna let you continue before we go off. I want to kind of give more history on B.J. Thompson because it's been
Okay.
a big thing before you go off. And I apologize. I just want to say on Thursday night we're talking about cardiac arrest, so I want to give them people watching the history of what happened. Thursday night he was at Thursday afternoon he was at a special teams meeting. Now we know that when you are kind of unless you show something like spectacular, when you're kind of a late day 3 draft pick per se, you're usually on special teams, right? You're on that trying to get your opportunity to move up to something like offense or defense or what you specialize in. But usually they put you on special teams to see what you do. And sometimes there's people that stay on special teams for their entire career. We know somebody like Devin Hester and a Matthew Slater, 2 guys that are very, very big on special teams and who were very successful for their careers. But BJ Thompson Thursday had a cardiac arrest during a special teams meeting, and that's kind of what we know. With no history of heart problems, and Nate's kind of going over, hey, how are these guys with no history of heart anything? I don't have a heart issue. My family doesn't have any heart issues. How are these guys suffering cardiac arrest when there's nothing in me or no history of me that says otherwise? Nate says, hey, they're putting these stuff in their bodies. Nate, I want to ask you, why is this happening? And I want to say, like, how do these injuries that happen on the field kind of translate to the ones off the field? Because we know Damar Hamlin had one on the field, and we can really say now that BJ Thompson, although he was not in a high stress situation at all, like he wasn't down on a 3-point stance, down on the line, getting ready for a snap. He was simply in a meeting, and he had a seizure. What's up, Nate?
I mean, it's a question that's kind of hard to answer because we're seeing guys again. If you've never had a history of seizures or anything health related and whatnot, and it just comes out of nowhere, you ponder in the back of your head because you have medical personnel. You have medical personnel that literally, put in the time and effort to give you preseason physicals and after season physicals just to make sure you're healthy. Your body's, your organs, everything is functioning well, and that you're good. But now you gotta start eliminating things. And in the words of a rapper, Young Jeezy, he said, if it ain't adding up, you got to start subtracting. Now it's not that, but a lot of this stuff is not adding. It's not adding up. You've had high pressure situations in games. You've had games collegiately, and again now in the NFL. And you didn't pass out. You didn't do this, that, and the other. You weren't even, and the meet. You've been in the meeting and you didn't have. It wasn't a high stress environment, and whatnot. The question now is, okay, well, what are these guys putting in their bodies? What supplements are being taken?
Well, although you told me before the show that these things are FDA approved, obviously there's stuff maybe that's coming out of this stuff that might not necessarily be FDA approved.
That's having a bad reaction in the body. So these are things that, again, I don't want to say that he put something in his body, but or anything like that. No, I don't want to misconstrue anything. I just want to throw out there, why is this happening now?
Well, I want to say, like, you talk about people that are trying to get their opportunity, and we can take these guys and I don't want to make this assumption at all, but I want to paint a picture. I want to set a scene and ask you this. I want to set the scenario. Like, we have these guys that are trying to get their opportunities. Damar Hamlin came in for injured safety. BJ Thompson is a 5th-round pick in special teams, obviously awaiting their time to shine, and they're putting stuff in their body that might not necessarily be regulated, that could be regulated, and we're seeing the side effects that come from it. And I want to say, Saints quarterback we drafted in 2023, Jake Haener, in the 4th round out of, I think, Fresno State. I can't remember. He ended up violating the PED policy. Why? Because he's trying his best to get an opportunity, and the only way he feels he can get there is by putting in performance enhancing drugs, because he feels that his performance level is not at the level it should be to get that opportunity. I feel it's the same with Damar. It's the same with BJ Thompson. They feel that their performance level is not at the Buffalo Bills standard, is not at the Kansas City Chiefs standards. So they're trying to put stuff in their bodies so that their bodies, not used to this foreign object, can get to that level of performance that the Bills and the Chiefs are used to.
It's hard when that's a hard question.
I'm not saying Damar and BJ didn't put PEDs, because obviously they passed their drug tests and physicals and stuff. Jake Haener did. So, but I'm saying that it is similar. I feel that this is a similar scenario, which is why I pointed that out.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make clear, yes, Damar Hamlin or BJ Thompson were not putting performance enhancing drugs in their system. Jake Haener did, which is why he got suspended. What do you think, Nate? Is that a viable option? I don't want to make assumptions, but I kind of wanted to paint that picture.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be. I mean, there are so many questions, but the biggest question is why now? Like, what's happening? What's changing now? I mean, what?
Look at this comment, Nate.
Okay, let me see.
Bronny James and BJ Thompson took the same thing. Now, if this is true, which it could be true because of the outcome, they both suffered cardiac arrest. We saw Bronny James not too long ago
Yes,
during
yes.
the year suffer cardiac arrest. Nobody knowing, hey, why did Bronny James do this? We saw Bronny James at USC not performing at the level he was supposed to perform at a starter for college basketball, and he ended up trying, and in my mind, like I said earlier, get to that performance level that a D1 school is used to, especially being LeBron James's son. He felt all this pressure, had to take whatever it is that BJ Thompson and DeMar Hamlin are taking to become a starter for the University of Southern California. Ended up getting cardiac arrest. Now, I could just be spewing out lies, but this is, look,
It's
I'm not
serious.
good at math. Something ain't adding up. That's what my mom says. I don't need a rapper for that. And something is actually connecting here. The dots are connecting, and I'm starting to see a nice little constellation. Might as well call it the Big Dipper.